there's something we haven't really discussed during all this coronavirus, economy disaster. It's time to discuss it. Also, we had a kind of a somber briefing yesterday. We'll give you an update on that. And lastly, at least one industry is doing fine. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Well, there is an elephant in the room that we haven't discussed yet. You see, we've gone over endlessly this China coronavirus thing, the deaths. We're up past 4,000 now. New York is getting slapped around by it really bad. Make sure you pray for them. We've talked about it endlessly on my show, the economic impact. And look, we're not going to stop talking about that. I understand every single show out there, everybody else wants to only focus on, the deaths and the pandemic, and yes, that stuff is important. We are going to tell the story of the working man always on this show. Why? Because he matters too. I noticed everybody screaming at me about, stop talking about the economy, Jesse. Jesse, you only care about money. The funny thing about that is almost all of them are, one, still getting a paycheck, and two, live in the Washington, D.C., New York City corridor. The rest of America matters too. We're not going to stop telling these stories. Not now, not ever. You can scream at me till you're blue in the face. But there is something else we haven't discussed. We're out of money. And I mean, out of money is putting it really, really kindly. Let's do the math here. The Trump administration and Congress, it's on them both, they were running $1 trillion deficits. $1 trillion going into this. This is before any pandemic hit, before any economic slowdown, when the economy was booming, and I mean booming, maybe the greatest economy we've ever had. We were still managing to spend $1 trillion a year more than we were taking in. Staggering. Obama-style numbers. Let's see. Now, government revenues, tax revenues, are unquestionably going to be in the toilet because people aren't working. Therefore, people aren't paying taxes. So we were already running trillion-dollar revenues. Now, or trillion-dollar deficits. Now revenues are down here, so that deficit only goes up. Oh, by the way, we just passed a $2 trillion stimulus plan when revenues are dropping. We're spending more, revenues are through the floor. On top of that, they're talking about spending another $2 trillion at the end of the, we're just going to do an infrastructure project. Now, I understand. I only went to community college. I certainly don't want to speak out of turn here, but there are economic laws. You see, there are several economic theories. What's best? Capitalism, collectivism, all that stuff. You can, should we be commies? Should we be free? You can have that argument till you're blue in the face. But there are economic laws. I understand the big Ivy League educated brains in Washington, D.C. think you can just run over to the printing press to the end of time and hit print on the $100 bills and look at how much money we just made. No. Economic laws say that every time you print one of those dollars, unbacked, which they're all unbacked now, you are lowering the value of that dollar. Now, yes, there's all kinds of currency manipulation out there where we're avoiding having to take that on the chin, but I hate to be the one to break it to all you people in government. There's an expiration date on that. And if you want to find out what that expiration date is, go ahead and spend $4 trillion in 1 year than you make. You can't do that. You cannot spend this much money. And this thinking that you can shut down a $20 trillion economy and somehow make up those gains with a $2 trillion stimulus plan and then a $2 trillion infrastructure plan. That's insane. I'm sorry. I don't mean to disagree with your favorite politicians. That's insane. On top of that, you saw what they just did with a coronavirus relief bill. I mean, you saw the disgusting stuff that was in it, even if it didn't make it till passage. I mean, they were trying to get everything in there. They passed $25 million for the Kennedy Center of the Arts. What do you think they would put in there as a $2 trillion infrastructure bill? Can you even comprehend how much crap would be in that thing? It's not going to be a stimulus. It's not going to give us a boost. It's going to be a gigantic federal dollar giveaway to every powerful congressman and senator with a special interest out there. Well, how do I know that's the way it's going to work? Because that's how it always works. Every single time. Wow, we're just going to pass a big bill and handle this. And then they pass a big bill and it's full of crap. And because we don't have a media in this country, nobody bothers to do a little bit of digging and figure out who is responsible for putting this disgusting item in the bill. You notice that never happens? I mean, let's be honest, that last one I just talked about, the $25 million for the Kennedy Center for the Arts. Who did that? Is that a radical thing to ask? We all agree that some magical fairy didn't descend from the clouds and put that in the bill, right? A living, breathing human being sat down, penciled that out, slipped it in the bill. A person did that. Who? Somebody knows. Somebody did it, and somebody knows who did it. And that was just the last one. What in the world do you think those scumbags would do with another $2 trillion blank check of not only money that's unbacked, money that's not coming in? People, there's no money coming in. And we've already talked about the feds just now. What about the states? What about the cities? Do you think their revenues are looking good? Their revenues are through the floor. They're gone, and they can't print money. If Nevada's broke, Nevada can't go to the printing press. If the great state of Texas is broke, they can't go to the printing press. What are they going to do? You see, the reverberations of an economic downturn like this, they go on and on and on and on, and all day long, when you think about, oh, well, this means this, and this means that, and this means that, it can blow your mind. You can spend all day thinking about the consequences and how long-term they are. Have we even brought up the banks today? The banks? You know what? Listen to Devin Nunes, and then we're going to talk about the banks.
But let's stop looking at the death counters and let's talk about how we can keep as many people employed as possible. That's the key right now, Laura, because if you don't, what you said earlier is correct. When you have people staying at home, not taking care of themselves, you will end up with a hell of a lot more people dying by other causes than you will by the coronavirus.
He's right. We already talked about Knoxville and then how their suicides are shooting through the roof so bad they had to have their mayor do a PSA. People, that's one county. That's one city. What do you think that looks like across the United States? And now think about the fact that the economic numbers are about to get worse. Now, what gets cut? You just heard me say they can't print money, right? California can't print money, states can't print money, or none of the states can print money, none of the cities can print money. How many cops are you going to have next year? How many firefighters are you going to have next year? Those schools you love, the government schools, I hate them, but the ones you love, how many are going to be around? How many teachers are going to get the can? You tell me. You know how that looks, right? Because the government, especially the state and local ones, they can't print, but they do have a profit loss sheet like business. Well, let me see here. We made $1 billion, but we're spending $3 billion next year. Well, time to cut. And nobody likes to talk about that, do they? That's when it gets uncomfortable. All these politicians love to run for office. You're gonna get a handout, and you're gonna get a handout, and I'm gonna spend more money on this, and we're gonna spend more money on that. Oh, those days are about to be gone. They're gonna have to run on, somebody's gonna get fired. Let it be said, I warned everybody in the very beginning that this was coming, and it's coming. All of that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. Now let's talk about mybookie.ag. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It helps me pass the time. We are all staring at the walls, wondering when these shutdowns, when these lockdowns are going to end, and we need some kind of escape, right? I mean, the days of Cheetos and video games and Mountain Dew are gone. We need something to get away for a couple minutes. Why not go to mybookie.ag and find out the different ways that you can bet on politics? Yes, on politics. You can bet on the delegates. You can bet on who's going to be the next president if you want to keep it simple. You can bet on who's the next terrorist who's going to be captured. You can bet on whether or not Donald Trump's Twitter account is going to be removed. They have this laundry list of bets. And what else do we have to do right now? Nothing. Go spend a little bit of money. And if you go on mybookie.ag and you use the promo code Jesse, again, use the promo code Jesse, they will match your money. You put in $250, they match you $250. You put in $1,000, they match you $1,000. Does free money sound appealing right now? mybookie.ag, promo code Jesse. Go there today, start playing. I will. Well, they're doing these daily coronavirus task force briefings. You know, Donald Trump gets up there usually, and Mike Pence gets up there, and the doctors get up there and they give their things. And I liked a lot of what I saw yesterday. I will tell you, I have loved Donald Trump's tone throughout this entire process. He has very wisely, in my opinion, dropped the normal bombastic stuff. I mean, he slaps around the press where they deserve it, but he's presenting a calm, reasonable voice, and I liked it.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. And then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks.
It's fine. I got no issue with that. I have no issue with the president having a somber, direct tone. Here's where I do have an issue. I'm about to show you both of the doctors. Someone needs to explain this to me. Here's Dr. Birx.
It was their models that created the ability to see what these mitigations could do, how steeply they could depress the curve from that giant blue mountain down to that more stippled area. In their estimates, they had between 1.5 million and 2.2 million people in the United States succumbing to this virus without mitigation. Yet through their detailed studies and showing us what social distancing would do, what would happen if people stayed home, what would happen if people were careful every day to wash their hands and worry about touching their faces, that what an extraordinary thing this could be if every American followed these. And it takes us to that stippled mountain that's much lower, a hill actually, down to 100 to 200,000 deaths, which is still way too much.
I'm sorry, what? 100 to 200,000 deaths? What are you talking about? Even if that number is accurate, and look, how is that accurate? Okay, we passed 4,000. I understand the numbers are going up. We're also churning out ventilators. We're cranking out new hospital beds in the super affected areas like New York City. In what universe are we 2 weeks away from having 200,000 dead Americans? I need an explanation. If you, as the resident doctor, as the resident expert, are going to stand up there and scare the living crap out of the American people, I need a better explanation that, well, if you look at the charts and the mountain actually becomes a molehill, and that's because we did some studies and we did some, no. We don't have those kind of numbers anywhere. Nowhere. Even Italy. You remember when they were trying to scare everybody to death, the media and everyone, oh, look at Italy. I can't believe what's happening in Italy. You better watch out for Italy. Hey, we have Italy to worry about. Italy. We all better worry about Italy. They're not even approaching numbers like that. What? 200,000? Well, if we do everything right, we're going to have 200,000 dead people in a couple weeks. Anyway, that's just what the models say. Have a good one. I think that's grossly irresponsible. You want to get up there and caution people to take these social distancing seriously? That's fine. Got no issue with that at all. You want to stand up there as the resident expert and say, hey, if we do everything right, 200,000 of you are going to die. Whew. You better be right. And if you're not right, don't do that thing where all the experts go scurrying back off to their jobs somewhere. You stand up there in 2 weeks and you say, sorry. Here's the other doc.
Actually, should Americans be prepared for the likelihood that there will be 100,000 Americans who die from this virus?
The answer is yes. We need, as sobering a number as that is, we should be prepared for it. Is it going to be that much? I hope not. And I think the more we push on the mitigation, the less likelihood it would be that number. But as being realistic, we need to prepare ourselves that that is a possibility, that that's what we will see.
Now that is a better answer. That is the kind of answer I want to hear. Let's hope it doesn't get there. We certainly could see it. That's more of a just do what you can, be smart out there, and hopefully we won't get there. That's much different than what Dr. Birx said. Come on now, lady. Come on. If we do everything right, 200,000 of you are going in the ground. Okay, so now I'm developing a theory. And you know I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, although I enjoy them, I don't do them, I don't believe in them. And I don't necessarily think this is a conspiracy. Do they know something we don't? I need to know. I have these projections and I've been told endlessly about, well, this model this and this model that. 1 million here or 2 million there, or we do everything right and then it's 200,000 and these huge numbers that we're not even coming close to approaching. Do they know something we don't? Look, if they do, that's fine. I understand sometimes the government gets a hold of information, especially when you're dealing with potential national panic or national security, and they don't necessarily want to just dump it out to the public. I get all that. That's fine. But what do you know that I don't? We're at 4, and we're going to be at 200 in a couple weeks? What? We're not seeing anything like that. And even if the number is doubling every few days, like they say it is, that doesn't equal 200,000. Unless someone's doing different math than me. Something weird is going on. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but something weird is going on. I would not in any way be surprised if the Trump administration has some intelligence, because you know we have intelligence assets in China. I would in no way be surprised if they have some intelligence saying in Wuhan, where all this stuff broke out, it is an absolute disaster area. Disaster area. Wouldn't be surprised about that. It's the only thing that makes words like that make sense to me. All right. We're going to talk to Amber Athey. Hang on. Joining me now is the Washington editor for Spectator USA from the middle of the swamp, Amber Athey. Amber, give me some DC insight on this whole thing. I'm on the outside looking in. Everybody knows I disagree with pretty much everything that's happening right now. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I disagree with all of it. Tell me what the Washington perspective is and if you think I'm an idiot.
Well, I think the charts that have been released from the White House have kind of spoken for themselves. They've now said that perhaps best case scenario, provided everyone follows along with these social distancing rules, is that we see somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 deaths, which is still a pretty significant number. Of course, that's revised down from something like 1 to 2 million, which was the projection before we decided to implement some of these stricter measures of only keeping essential businesses open, preventing gatherings of 10 or more people, and so on and so on. So there's been a lot of change over the past few weeks in terms of what their projections are, and it's really difficult to say, I think to your point, whether or not those revisions are actually a direct result of some of the actions taken by the administration, or if that was what we would have seen anyway. There's just really no way to know.
That's my problem, Amber, is I feel like nobody's going to own this if they turn out to be wrong. And look, I have no problem admitting I'm wrong, mainly because it never happens. But let's say I am totally wrong about this whole thing. Let's say at the end of April, we got 200,000 dead Americans, and we turn the economy back on, and we're just churning and burning, and we're rolling just fine. I'm going to be thrilled to stand up here and say, I was wrong, we did it right. However, I'm extremely concerned the opposite is not going to happen. If at the end of April, we have 30,000 Americans, which is still disgusting. I mean, it's absolutely awful to think about. 30,000 dead Americans, and we're in a Great Depression. I feel like every expert is going to stand up at the podium and be like, see, look how many lives I saved. Anyway, have a good one. I'm going back to Yale. That's going to make me upset.
Well, it's a classic move, right? This is exactly what happened after the Iraq War when we spent millions, if not billions of dollars there and lost a lot of American lives for very little to show for it. The experts still, in many cases, refuse to admit that they're wrong and instead continue to lecture us on a number of different issues. So while I personally disagree with you in terms of our social distancing measures, I definitely do agree that there should be an appropriate level of skepticism for any of these models or predictions that are being pushed out by the so-called experts. And we should be trusting but verifying every step of the way to make sure that we're taking the correct course of action.
Yeah, and look, I agree with social distancing. I'm social distancing. I'm not out there at spring break shotgunning beers with a bunch of college students. We're not doing that. All I'm saying is we can do both, and right now we're not doing both. We can aggressively go after a virus without carpet bombing the U.S. economy. I don't see how that's a radical position.
Well, I would like that to be true, but unfortunately, you still have these idiots who are going out to restaurants and bars. I mean, even after some of these guidelines were released, what I saw on the ground in D.C. is these millennials and Generation Z people running out to get wasted at these bars that have hundreds of people inside. And the problem is all it takes is a couple of people to spread the virus unknowingly. There's tons of asymptomatic cases. And then guess what? These people go to visit their grandparents, or they even just go to the grocery store and they touch something. This thing can live on hard surfaces for apparently up to 72 hours. Someone else goes to touch the same product or goes to touch a touch screen in the self-checkout line. And all of a sudden, you've significantly increased the number of cases by your own levels of irresponsibility. So while I'd love for us to be able to say that people are responsible enough to do this without the government mandating them to, we just haven't seen that to be the case. And this is something that affects far more than just yourself.
Explain far more than just myself. What do you mean as far as that goes?
Well, people are saying, for example, that if you choose to go out or frequent a business or go to a bar or even just go for a run and you're around dozens of other people at the park, the problem is that that is not just putting yourself at risk. You're also putting other people at risk because you could be an asymptomatic carrier without even realizing it. And the way that this thing spreads so easily, it's not like if you, let's say, have the flu and you sneeze on someone and you get them sick. You could be spreading this without even realizing it through touch, hard surfaces, through breathing the air. There's just too little that we know right now for, I think, people to reasonably say that if I personally go out and defy some of these orders, the only person I'm harming is myself.
Do you think that, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I just had this thought today. Do you think that the White House has some intel out of Wuhan that has scared them to death, and that's why they're taking such draconian measures? Because I'm sorry, look, you can talk about doctors and charts and graphs all you want. Nothing we see right now indicates we're about to have 200,000 dead Americans. They don't even have that in Italy, where they were getting crushed by this freaking thing, unless they seriously know something that we don't. We know China's lying. Or is China mega lying and they've been just chucking people in the incinerators over there?
It very well could be. We saw this report late last week that showed 5,000 urns being delivered just to one hospital in Wuhan. If you extrapolate that to the other hospitals in that region, in that province, then it stands to reason that the numbers there are completely out of control. Vice President Mike Pence just said on, I believe it was on Fox News today, that he suspects America is going to have a crisis closer to the levels of Italy than other areas of Europe. I would suspect that they've seen some type of intel before he would say that, because the whole line from the administration is not wanting to cause panic. And me hearing that we're going to be like Italy does the opposite of that. I think it's highly possible that the administration knows more about just how bad this spread is from China beyond even just the reporting that their numbers have been underreported.
What if we get to the end of April, because this is the argument I've made, well, it's the argument I'm making tonight. What if we get to the end of April and the two doctors up there stand up at the podium and they say, well, we have to keep extending this thing? And I actually say that's the likely scenario, because the doctor is always going to err on the side of trying to fix it. This thing's not going to be gone in 30 days. It's just not simply realistic. However, it's equally unrealistic to think you're going to keep Americans locked inside this long. You're just not. You're going to start having civil unrest. You're going to start having looting. That's a fact. How do we strike that balance? Because someone's going to have to strike it.
Yeah, I think what Trump said last week was probably the right approach when we get closer to June, which is when apparently the peak of this is supposed to happen, which is reopening some of the businesses where we can reasonably still practice social distancing while they're open. So maybe you don't open bars, but you open maybe some smaller convenience stores or other businesses that have been shut down in the wake of this. And you kind of do a little bit of both. So you reopen ones that are a bit safer, keep larger crowds down so you avoid things like major sporting events or concerts or things of that nature. But the exact balance obviously would have to be worked out. But I agree, once you get into a couple of months of people living like this, there is going to be civil unrest. People are going to get really antsy, and they're going to start defying the orders. You can only keep people under lockdown for so long before it starts to negatively affect not just the economy, which is obvious, but also society.
Well, Amber, how are you coping with the quarantine? What are you doing? Working out like a beast? Are you eating pizza every day? How are you handling it?
A little bit of both. I've been trying to work out every day, but also baking up a storm like a good trad wife. I wrote a piece about that in The Spectator. Everyone is baking now. It's fantastic. Atta
girl. Proud of you. Amber Athey, Washington editor of Spectator USA. Thank you. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks, Jesse.
Oh, I have more to say. Hang on. Well, there's something out there that's kind of looming. We haven't really addressed it too much yet, and it's time we start taking this seriously. We have to choose the leader of the free world in November. Yes, they just issued guidelines to close us down until April, but walk with me here. I don't want to be doom and gloom on you here, but walk with me. What do you think the chances are, with all these models we've seen, all these doctors, all these predictions, we're going to have 10 million dead, 50 million worldwide, 2 million Americans, 200,000 of everything. I mean, we've had these dire doomsday things. What do you think the chances are we get to the end of April and those doctors walk up to the microphone and say, woo, we made it. Problem solved. Let's get this economy open back up again. Do you think there's even a chance of that? Let me tell you something. They're not gonna. At some point in time, the President of the United States of America is going to have to step in and say, okay, you're overruled. We're rolling again. He's just going to have to. And as of right now, for better or for worse, we won't know for a while if the call was right, for better or for worse, he's letting them dictate. They say they need the country shut down. You know I disagree with it. We don't need to belabor that right now. He shut down the country. He said hopefully by Easter. He didn't predict Easter. He said hopefully by Easter. They said no, we need to the end of April. He said okay, you have to the end of April. As of right now, he's not overruling them. Which brings me to the point I was going to make. Let's say May? June? Look, I don't mean to step out of bounds here, but you tell me when you think those two doctors are going to step up to the microphone and say, we are through the woods. Let's get moving. I mean, you have this Dr. Fauci standing up there saying, oh, we're going to have a second wave of this in the winter. Or are they predicting more waves? Are we going to close down every time? Which brings me to this. Democrat National Committee, talking about their convention, the DNC said, quote, and this is a bit of a long one, bear with me, as we continue our countdown to 2020 Democratic National Convention, scheduled for July 13th through the 16th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we're faced with the unprecedented challenge as a country of responding to COVID-19. In this climate of uncertainty, we wanted to share an update on the planning. As we continue to monitor the developing coronavirus situation, our team will remain in constant communication with local, state, and federal officials responsible for protecting public health and security, and we will follow their guidance as we move forward. That being said, we also want to remain focused on planning a successful convention in July and nomination of the next president and vice president of the United States of America here in Milwaukee. That convention's not going to happen. You see, even, let's say the impossible thing happens, and it won't happen, but let's say Dr. Birx gets up there at the end of April and says, whew, we're rolling, let's go. Do you think everybody's going to get comfortable just gathering people up in a big group again? Because something else we haven't talked about, and this sucks, but this is true, this is lawsuit America we live in now. I mean, you get that, right? Part of the reason all these companies are closing, even some are closing that haven't been locked down, is, well, if I bring my employees in and somebody gets coronavirus, I'm going to get sued. We're closed. Do you think the DNC is going to burn up the phone with all their best supporters and say, sure, come on, pack the floor, we're good to go? Which leads me to the next problem. Beyond the DNC, which I don't care about anyway, what are we going to do in November? You sure this thing's going to be gone in November? You sure the government on state, local, federal level is going to be saying, go on, back to the beach as you go, have a big concert? I can't see that happening. Hopefully it is. I can't see it happening. But we have to decide the next president of the United States, and it's getting late. It's getting mighty late. How do we handle that? You can't just do a national mail-in ballot. Democrats have been cheating on that stuff forever. You can't, it's impossible. It's stupid. You can't do it. So what are we going to do? Answer is, I don't know. We have to do something. Much as I like President Trump, much as I want President Trump to have 4 more years, we got to do something. You still have to have an election. We still have the rule of law here. Where do we go? This will be fascinating to keep track of. I understand this isn't number one on everybody's plate right now. People are worried about paying rent. People are worried about eating, feeding their kids. And yeah, those should be, priority number one. Staying healthy, not getting this nasty little bug. But the political angle of this can't be dismissed. Also, talking about November, we still have Joe Biden. I mean, look, I'm not going to stop talking about this. I'm not going to stop bringing this up because I'm worried he might be the next president. No, don't throw your remote at the TV. Don't change the channel. You know I want President Trump to stay there. But in times of this kind of economic uncertainty, nobody knows how elections go. In the history of the world, when nations have this kind of economic downturn, things can change. Things can get radical. Completely nonsensical things can happen. And can you imagine if we're on that economic downturn and this man is president?
Remember, the president promised not long ago that there'd be in the CVC parking lots and Walgreens parking lots, and I forget the other one he mentioned. I suggested that we should have people in China at the outset of this event. And when it all started in Luhan province.
Secretary of State insisted, and this broke the meeting up basically in terms of her influence, that this be called the Luhan virus.
And what if there was allocating responsibility is, I'll let history do that. But well, thanks for giving me the time.
Thank you.
So that we don't wonder where I am.
The Luhan virus? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to laugh. You all know I've made several strides in not mocking anymore because I genuinely feel bad. But again, with the reading, You remember we went over this a couple days ago where he was doing this thing where he was talking beside the camera and you could clearly tell he was reading the whole thing. Now it's just flat reading off. And you know what we actually should do? We should have to do with the Wuhan virus. And I said in the very beginning, Joe, need you on the camera, bro. How is he doing this poorly when this is a time of rest? That is a concern. And again, I only have this concern because as of this moment, he's the likely nominee. He's the likely nominee at at this point, I think he's still like a 99% chance to be the Democrat nominee, which gives him a fighting shot at being president of the United States of America. It does. People, you can talk about Trump's approval ratings all day long. There's a poll came out yesterday, national poll, Biden's up too. This thing could still be neck and neck. Now make unemployment 20, 25, 30%. Anything could happen in November. And we can't have that. Whatever that was, we can't have that. Even the worst Trump hater in the world can't look at that and be like, that's a better alternative. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right. We got Brandon Tatum coming up. Hang on. Joining me now is former police officer and host of the Brandon Tatum Show on KTAR in Arizona. Brandon, first of all, how is the Tatum family handling this whole lockdown, quarantine, insanity right now?
Well, we're all alive, thank God, but I think we're very skeptical. It's becoming increasingly more upsetting as the government completely shut down our economy, completely shut down the state. And it just seems like the outrage is not matching the actual numbers that we see here on the ground in Arizona specifically. So, I mean, we're trying to do our best to do our part as American citizens, but at some point, it's beginning to be taxing.
Taxing is a nice way to put it. I think you and I are of the same mind on this whole thing. I think that this is complete insanity. I've said before, and I believe it, I've never seen such a collectively agreed upon insanity in all of my days. To destroy the entire United States economy over any virus. Yes, this is deadly, but it's not the Black Plague. But even if it was, you can't destroy the economy for it because then there's nothing worth fighting for. There's nothing to come back to.
Yeah, and here's the things that I think about, right? If the coronavirus or COVID-19 was the only virus that existed and we only have a death toll related to COVID-19, then I'll say, look, we should all be afraid. Let's, take every chance we have to take to preserve life. But I mean, the flu has killed more people than the coronavirus this year. We saw in 2018, we had about 80,000 people die from the flu. And it's just the outrage isn't matching the numbers. And if we're going to be this outraged about this virus, why haven't we done anything about other viruses that were very similar or had a higher death toll? And why we're not doing things about, for instance, we can spend $2.2 trillion at the drop of a dime and shut the whole country down to preserve life of 4,500 people so far. But they got homeless people in California by the tens of thousands laying on the street, and we can't even come together to build facilities in a timely manner. You got Flint, Michigan water, it's out of control and people are dying, and we're not doing anything about that. Chicago, Illinois, people are killing each other on a day-to-day basis, and we can't even have a curfew. So if you're gonna have outrage, I think it should be consistent, and maybe people in America feel more comfortable with it.
Maybe they would. And I'll tell you something else that's absolutely driving me nuts, Brandon. And I don't know where this came from. And I don't like using words like this because I never try to, I love my country. I've never been more disheartened with the American people than I am right now. And it's not just the scared, government, just take care of me response. It's the snitching on each other responses. Now, maybe I grew up a little different than everybody else, but that was not something you did. And now I see an entire portion of this society dedicated to social media shaming anybody who goes out. They closed the freaking basketball courts by my house. I can't even go shoot hoops with my sons. You got these suburban moms blasting people. I called the cops because I saw two teenagers out riding their bikes. What have we become? Are we the Stasi now in this place?
Well, look, I mean, the people, and I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but the people who are controlling the government, in my personal opinion, this is a test run. Everybody talks about the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, how we were going to fight against the government. We want small government. Wait until a crisis happens and you can see where people's hearts are truly at. I don't understand why all these gun-toting Americans have just accepted complete loss of freedom. I understand that at some point we have to come together as a society and we have to do what's best for the common good of Americans. But when you have New York State that has over half of the cases, nearly half of all of the deaths in this entire country, and you are pushing all of this on every other state. I did some research just recently and I just looked it up. I mean, right before you called me, I was looking at the numbers, so they're pretty accurate. 43 states have less than 100 deaths. 48 states have less than 10,000 cases. And so you have a concentration of about 6 states that have the bulk of what's going on. Why is everybody laying down and just taking it on the chin when we should be fighting for our own dignity within our own states or our own counties? If we don't have 100 cases here, we should open up business. We should do business as normal. We can always practice washing our hands or whatever the case may be. But I mean, we're going to ruin our economy beyond repair. In some states like Virginia, I think they've done this in California, they are projecting to have everything shut down through June. They are going to create a welfare state. And I think it's all by design in some of these governors.
I have an issue also. Look, let's just be honest. Everybody knows I'm a Trump fan. Voted for him, looking forward to voting for him again. But either Trump or the people around him, or there's a combination of the two, I feel like they're under the impression that we can just stimulus spend our way through this whole thing. They already passed one embarrassing $2 trillion bill. Trump's already out there today talking about another $2 trillion infrastructure bill. I can't even comprehend the amount of pork and crap that'll be stuffed into that whole thing. How in the world is there a way of thinking in this country that we can just point at every American and say, go lock yourself in your house and close your business and we'll write you a government check? How are people so accepted? Are we that scared now? Are we changed? Have we always been this way? Or are we just a bunch of sheep now where we accept this?
I think that what has happened is they've groomed us to become the sheep that we are today. We just have accepted it. We are just, I'm telling you, the American people are independent folks. You know, we are rooted and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, starting small businesses. And now we have become completely dependent on the government, a government that has lied to us day in and day out, a government that has shown they do not have the people's best interests at heart. When you have Democrats trying to rush $15 an hour pay, emissions, and all kind of other BS into a stimulus bill to help the American people. And this is what I would say about President Trump. I love Trump. I'm going to vote for him in 2020. Guarantee your money back. But I don't like the fact that Republicans have been so spineless. There is no way that the President of the United States of America should have gotten a $2.2 trillion bill on his desk, and he should have never signed it. When the Democrats started demanding that they were going to add stuff into a bill that has nothing to do with the American people, putting us deeper in debt, creating more dependency, the Republicans in the Senate should have said, no, we're not doing it. Listen, this is what happened to us. And this is what shows how weak we are on the conservative side. It's like, you know, the pepper contest. You eat the peppers and you see who drink the milk first, right? And the Republicans have essentially drank the milk before the Democrats have. They said, we're going to put this in the bill. They knew that the American people would be upset about it, but they said, who's going to give first? And lo and behold, the Republicans gave. And then they went down to the House, and then they passed it to the president, and what did he do? He signed it into law. And they still criticized him, and they hated him no matter what he does. So I think that we've become soft, man. They're shutting down churches. We're not doing anything. They're shutting down gun stores. We're not doing anything.
Oh, we're not just shutting down churches. They're arresting pastors for having church here in the United States of America. I've never seen anything like it. Brandon Tatum, host of the Brandon Tatum Show on KTAR. Man, I enjoyed the heck out of it. We're going to have you back soon.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. God bless you. Stay safe out there, man.
Be good, brother. You too. All right. Well, I know how Ina Garten's getting through the quarantine. I'll show you in a second. Well, my fellow Americans, it's not all bad news out there. I am proud of you for this. Alcohol sales are up 55% since we all got quarantined, so I guess that tells us how we're all coping with this. Everybody's seen the cooking show, or at least many of you have, Barefoot Contessa. Well, the lady on there who does the cooking, her name's Ina Garten, and she was kind enough to share her Cosmo recipe with everybody. Enjoy.
During these stressful times, it's really important to keep traditions alive. My favorite tradition is the cocktail hour. So I'm going to make you my favorite cosmopolitan, and you probably have all the ingredients right in your house. So here goes. So you need a big pitcher, because I like to make a lot of Cosmos. You never know who's going to stop by. Wait a minute, nobody's stopping by. 2 cups of vodka, good vodka, and a big pitcher. Just pour it right in. Next is 1 cup of Cointreau or triple sec, any kind of orange liqueur. That's 1 cup. 1 cup of cranberry juice cocktail. I mean, how easy is this? And a 1/2 cup of freshly squeezed lime juice. It's got to be freshly squeezed. Very important. Okay, now that's the pitcher. So now I've got a cocktail shaker, a very big one. And I've got half filled with ice, ready to go. Just gonna pour the cocktail in. Oh, this smells so good. Just what everybody needs, right? Put the lid on and just shake it up. Okay, you have to shake it for 30 seconds. You have lots of time, it's not a problem. 30 seconds. Oh, this is gonna be good. During a crisis, you know, cocktail hour can be almost any hour. Okay, now, the last detail is really important, a good martini glass. I'm gonna show you the one I like. I would say, in these times, this is really important. So just pour it right in. Oh, doesn't that look fabulous? Nice and cold. And lots of it. And I would say, stay safe, have a very good time, and don't forget the cocktails. Delicious.
Somebody do a wellness check on Ina Garten. All right, everybody. We're going to be back tomorrow to do it again. Y'all take care of yourselves.